Well, here we are, AdFeature time, and as I look to my right, I have this vision of the new political spectrum. Oresti Patricios from Ornico is in the studio
with the beret,
with the EFF beret, making some kind of a statement, I would imagine.
Yes.
I mean, there's been some interesting correspondence online about unlikely people saying it's a good thing to vote for the EFF.
Yes,
and perhaps
but not
Oresti.
Mtshali.
No. But before we get into the meat of why we're really here, perhaps you would explain your attire, because normally it's me who gets criticised at the start of the show for looking wrong fashion-wise. I have to say it doesn't really do a lot for you, Oresti, but tell me why you're wearing it.
Well, ultimately, part of the Trends talk that we're doing tomorrow is talking about the media brands and the news brands. And this year it's going to be a big news year because it's political discussions and voting and the rest of it. So that's why the hat.
Well, I mean, it's at a very snazzy angle, and at least it fits you, because with Julius, I mean, you can barely get it on his head. So, but it is very arresting, so to speak. Whereas Gugu Mtshali, who's sitting behind you, who's the head of Ornico's Africa division, I mean, it just pales into insignificance, because you are just so conservatively dressed.
Well, you know, with Oresti, he always takes over.
No, does
Yes. So you learn how to deal with it.
But there's lots to talk about because both of you are right. It's going to be a huge news year. It really is.
I think there'll be a lot of discussion about party political brands. I'm looking forward to seeing them try to distill their very complex messages down into single thoughts. And it's something we may come back to later in the show if we've got time.
I have no doubt.
Because of the barney between Nedbank and the IFP that's going on at the moment about slogans, so might return to that issue. But the reason that Oresti and Gugu are in the studio is because of the forthcoming launch, which I think sort of starts now but finishes tomorrow, a long and lazy launch, as opposed to advertising long and lazy lunch, which is the more usual, of a new service, a new book about trends and their value to marketers and to business people. And this is going to, I think, fill a vacuum that has traditionally been occupied by overseas trend spotters and forecasters. And it'd be really good to have an indigenous campaign, an indigenous resource here. But I suppose the first thing we have to ask is, what is a trend? How can you define it as opposed to a fad or something that's either really niche or blindingly obvious? What qualifications does it have to meet to be a trend in your eyes, Oresti?
Okay, well, you'll see in the book, Dave Duarte, we're using Dave Duarte's definitions of trends, trifles and truths. Now, the reality is a trend, well, let's talk about a trifle first. Foos and Benz was a internet money, but it wasn't really steeped into the reality of this cryptocurrency that we have now. So it kind of flitted like, what do you call it? Like, it just happened and then it just fell away. So it's not sustainable. It doesn't carry on for a hell of a long time. A human truth is something that lasts for a very, very long time, and it's in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You can kind of understand where those truths are. Trends have an ability to be able to, are also sustainable, they're long-lasting, and they change consumer behavior, they change the political environment, they change a lot of things. So you kind of see that trends don't change very, very quickly. They take a little bit of a longer time, and that's why we don't say that we're futurists. Because we read the media, we look and we curate trends more than we actually predict trends.
So they have to be evident out there before they qualify.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the service is called trendMARK 2014. The book here, which looks fabulous, but only landed in my hands a matter of a couple of minutes ago, so I can't give you
And I don't have one at all.
Jen, have this one.
No.
They say you read quickly.
Give us the potted summary of trendMARK.
Well, I think what it was, I mean, we've got a product that talks about trends, but we think really the reality is when Mark Lives, Herman Manson, approached us, it's all about collaboration. We talk about how important collaboration ultimately is. And we're telling our brands and all the brands that they need to collaborate. So shouldn't we also start collaborating? Mm-hmm. So we thought instead of just creating our own newsletter, why don't we collaborate? So we thought when Mark approached us and Mandy Duval approached us, we thought, geez, that's a really great idea to collaborate. Let's see who we're going to collaborate with. Mandy being the editor, she approached Dion Chang, she approached David Duarte, and approached a whole lot of other people in terms of trying to put together a book that there's a collaboration involved, but also it really talks about trends and getting the foremost trend thinkers to put in this information.
Who would use it?
Brands, without a doubt. I think not only product brands, but really personal brands, because personal brands become are a break, not only a trend, but really, really important. News brands, because we're really talking about the news brands and how internet is changing the way news media is being disseminated.
It's not predictive, however.
No.
So no trend spotting or anything like that. Although trending is the popularity of something that is expanding as it goes along.
Absolutely.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, we don't consider ourselves as a predictors, like I said up front. But because we read thousands of newspapers, we monitor so many blogs and listen to so many radio stations, we thought, let's put this into a coherent space. Although in the book we've got Kurzel, who is a futurist, so he is talking about certain trends.
So if I was the brand manager of BMW or Kellogg's Cornflakes or whatever, and do I subscribe or do I buy it outright, first of all?
No, you don't buy it. You can just download it from Mark Lives. Yeah.
So
Mark Lives.
It's your generosity.
Yes.
Is it? Okay, that's great. So I get hold of this and I would use it to spot trends you have identified that might be relevant to my particular target market, and then perhaps hope to steer my brand in the direction of those trends on the assumption that they're going to gather momentum with the passage of time. Is that
That's correct. Well, we have a brand intelligence canvas. So what happens is it depends in terms of what your product, what your brand is. And within that brand intelligence product canvas, you can ultimately put your brands, the trends, whether it's a consumer trend, whether it's a macro trend, because remember that macro trends also influence consumer trends, and consumer trends influence macro trends, such as the political environment, the social environment, etc. From there's gaps, and you identify these gaps and see, well, with the trend that is coming out, how can you change your product? What are the messages that you need to convey? How do you utilize the media to be able to convey them?
Well, Gugu, maybe you could help with this. I mean, we're not only are we in an election year, but we are in an Oscar Pistorius year. And so everybody is getting ready for the election, but they're also getting ready for the Oscar Pistorius trial. So what is the role of mobile news in consuming news, and how are media owners packaging all of that so that I can understand it really quickly and I can access it really quickly, say on my mobile or on my way home or something like that? What is that?
I think the easy access would be that people access news these days online. They access it on their mobile. So if you're really looking at targeting the consumers these days, you should start looking at those platforms, especially now with the elections and the Oscar Pistorius thing. You need to be looking at mobile and how can you capitalize on that.
Josh Cooper just completed, I don't know if you read her latest report with Anton Harbour, and she stated that the youth of today are actually accessing more news than ever before. They're accessing it differently and they're consuming it differently to their parents. And that's thanks to specifically mobile and the internet. The reality is that they triangulate it. They don't just get it from one source, so they look at it at a couple of sources, because you don't know what you can trust. And that's the real interesting thing, is how they're consuming it and that the way they're sharing it. Yes,
I've just had 5 days in a TV-free situation, and normally I'm a complete television news junkie, and I'm terrified that something might have happened in the world 5 minutes ago and I don't yet know about it. So I'm always on television. But when you don't have television, you have to make another plan, and online was the solution for me as well. I had 2 or 3 online platforms, and particularly with the DA announcement, for instance, following that live from the press conference, it certainly makes for a different form of news consumption.
Yeah. I also found during the Arab Spring, I was watching Twitter all the time at the same time as watching television. Because you were getting the news so quickly out of Twitter. So
But again, also it's got to be sifted, doesn't it? Because it's coming at such a rate, and you can't verify anything except in an overall sense. So that, I think, is one of the big challenges for the news organizations.
But I think also the important thing these days is about easy accessibility. How easily accessible is the news? That makes people want to go to that platform.
And it's how it's presented. And it's
how it's refined,
and it's how it's actually refined for you, because its speed is the essence, isn't it?
Yeah.
In terms of speeds of so you don't need loads and loads and loads of copy, but you need the essentials.
You need a summary.
Yes.
yeah, and we talk about we're in the instant gratification world. That's one of the trends. So you need to be gratified by the news immediately.
So let's get back to trendMARK 2014, because I'm holding this very beautifully designed and produced book. And yet you say this is available free in this form? I just have to print it?
You'd have to print it. It's downloadable free.
So you're a successful businessman, Oresti. I'm quite sure that somewhere along the line there is a revenue opportunity here. How are you covering your costs?
Well, the reality is that we've got a product that does trends. So what we do is that we curate trends for particular industries, for particular brands. Whether it's the banking industry, we've got a trend. We've got a trends product for the banking industry, for the nutrition and food industry, etc. So we go out and present these trends, and we get paid for
So this is a loss leader for your category-specific trend analyses.
Absolutely.
Got it. Okay.
But I think also it's about the exposure that we'll get through this trends book. The people that see and read this book are the people that we want as our clients.
And Gugu, am I right in saying that you're a bit of an expert on the West African market?
Yes, Nigeria.
Because one of your trends here is rather sinisterly titled Nigeria's Retail Death Match.
Yes.
Tell us a bit more about your experience in Nigeria, how you think it affects marketers in Southern Africa.
Okay. My experience in Nigeria was that online is a very booming trend. In 2012, the CBN introduced the cashless policy. Now with that, people were introduced to this credit cards, the debit cards, and not using actual cash. And as you know, Nigeria has been a cash society. So now once you have a credit card, you can shop online. And people were very scared of that before. But with that, it started booming. Last year in 2013 on its own, there's a company called Jamia.com. Jamia holds now 81% of the online shopping in Nigeria. From 5 staff members, now they have 500.
Wow.
And this is shopping for Nigerian goods.
It's Nigerian
online.
goods online, yes.
I hope they get them. I mean, do they?
They get them, yes.
Because the whole point of it continuing is 100% reliability.
They get them, but the slow point of it is that I don't think the traditional market retailers are going to die at the same time. Nigerians go shopping to socialize. They want to negotiate the price, and online you can't do that. So yes, online shopping is a trend that's growing, but it's still going to grow very slowly in that market.
So even though one company now dominates online as a category doesn't dominate retail.
No, not at the moment, no.
So your inclusion in the trendMARK 2014 list of trends about Nigeria's retail situation, is that because you anticipate that the same signs will emerge in Southern Africa? Is this a shortcut for South African marketers to see the future of retail?
I think so. I think more and more people don't have the time to go to the shop and shop. We live in a fast-paced society that you need things done, but you just don't have the time to drive there and go get stuck in queues and all of that. So it is a trend, I think, that is coming into South Africa. And you can see it with the online shops that have come up.
Yes. I mean, there are 5 of them. I mean, I'm thinking of Yappy Chef. What an extraordinary success story Yappy Chef is. You almost don't need to go into a kitchen shop. You almost don't. We are going to have to interrupt this discussion. Well, Oresti Patricios, who's the CEO of Ornico, and Gugu Mtshali, who's the head of Ornico's Africa division, didn't spend too much time with us, but we do get the understanding that we